make men cry missing you. 99% of women do not know this. And the reason is simple. You have been taught to chase attention instead of embodying presence. You have been taught to react instead of to remain centered. But when a woman understands her value, her silence becomes powerful, her absence becomes loud, and her energy becomes unforgettable value. Your time as sacred and never negotiate your standards. Time is the only resource you can never reclaim once it is gone. Every minute you spend reacting to someone else's drama, chasing validation, or settling for less than you deserve is a minute stolen from your growth, your peace, your purpose. When you start treating your time as precious, you stop giving it freely to those who do not see it as valuable. You stop overextending yourself for people who do not respect your boundaries. You begin to understand that your presence is not an entitlement for others to exploit, but a gift reserved for those who align with your energy and contribute to your growth rather than drain it. This is not arrogance. This is clarity. This is the difference between being available and being taken for granted. Many women fall into the trap of constant availability, answering every call, sending every message, and prioritizing attention over alignment. They mistake busyness for importance, movement for progress, and compliance for care. But when you begin to see your time as sacred, you naturally shift from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance. You understand that your energy is finite and that every moment you invest must honor your value. You no longer waste hours chasing people who are indifferent. You no longer linger in situations that do not serve your long-term vision. Instead, you allocate your time consciously, with intention, and with standards that reflect the life you are building for yourself. This is also about refusing to negotiate your boundaries. If someone does not respect your time, that is not your problem. That is theirs. When you answer messages immediately for people who repeatedly disrespect your schedule, you teach them that your time is disposable. When you cancel plans or rearrange your life to accommodate someone else's inconsideration, you tell them that your presence is optional. But when you uphold your boundaries consistently, you communicate a silent yet powerful message. Your time is not a commodity to be bargained with. Your attention is not a favor. Your presence is sacred. And people cannot help but notice the difference. Valuing your time also means valuing yourself. When you are clear about your worth, you no longer participate in meaningless small talk that drains you. You do not linger in conversations that lead nowhere. You do not sacrifice hours of your life for people who contribute nothing to your growth. You learn to say no without guilt, to leave situations that misalign with your purpose, and to invest in what truly matters: your goals, your health, your peace, and your emotional stability. This becomes a reflection of inner strength. It becomes a form of discipline. It becomes magnetic. People start to notice when someone carries themselves with that level of intentionality. When you treat your time as sacred, you also begin to respect the passage of life itself. You understand that every moment lost to distraction, drama, or unnecessary engagement is a moment you will never reclaim. This perspective forces you to evaluate the people, commitments, and energy you allow into your world. You become selective not out of fear or pride, but out of wisdom. You understand that presence without value is just noise, and absence with purpose is unforgettable. Your choices become deliberate. Your energy becomes rare. And in that rarity lies the power to make men notice what they cannot replace. Your time is also a reflection of your emotional boundaries. When you refuse to negotiate your schedule for someone who undervalues you, you teach them indirectly that their actions have consequences. When you protect your mornings, your evenings, your weekends, and your sacred routines, you create an aura of unshakable presence. You show that you are not driven by desperation, but by intention. You show that your life is full, and that they are not entitled to it unless they contribute meaningfully. This is the essence of making someone miss you, not by playing games, but by holding your energy and presence with unwavering respect. Every successful person understands that time is wealth, but most women undervalue this truth in relationships. They invest in attention, in proving worth, in responding to demands, without considering the return on their investment. Learning to value your time is not about withholding affection or being cold. It is about creating an environment where your presence is recognized for its worth. It is about stepping into your life fully and refusing to dilute yourself for anyone else's convenience. It is about moving from reaction to creation, from chasing validation to building a life that naturally commands attention. In practice, this means scheduling your priorities first, honoring your commitments to yourself, and making space only for those who bring alignment, respect, and growth. It means letting go of relationships, habits, or situations that drain you without reciprocation. It means turning down invitations, ignoring distractions, and focusing on what advances your life and purpose. And over time, this consistent respect for your own time creates magnetic energy. People notice it, they feel it, and they begin to miss the life, energy, and presence you bring when you are not available. Ultimately, valuing your time as sacred is a declaration of self-worth. It is an unspoken power that shifts the dynamics in every relationship, making you unforgettable without trying. It is not about scarcity or control, but about presence, integrity, and alignment. When you master this, you no longer chase attention or approval. Instead, you command it naturally because you have chosen yourself first. And that is the foundation of making someone truly miss you. Speak less but mean more, and let your silence create reflection. Words are powerful, but most people misuse them, scattering their energy on noise, repetition, and meaningless explanations. When you speak less, every word you do share carries weight. Every thought, every phrase, every statement becomes intentional. You stop over-explaining, justifying, or defending yourself to people who may never value your perspective. You stop filling silence with chatter that diminishes your presence. Instead, you choose precision, clarity, and depth. The effect is magnetic, subtle, and unforgettable. Most women do not understand the influence of selective speech. They think that to be noticed, to be loved, they must constantly speak, comment, clarify, or explain themselves. They fear that silence will be interpreted as weakness or disinterest, but the opposite is true. Silence is not absence. Silence is presence refined. Silence is power contained. When you speak less, you allow your energy to settle into the space you occupy. You create a sense of mystery. You allow others to reflect on your words, your actions, and your absence. In that reflection, they begin to see value they may have overlooked when you were constantly explaining, justifying, or performing for them. Speaking less does not mean being passive or disengaged. It means choosing your words like rare jewels, giving them purpose, and delivering them with confidence. Every sentence you speak should carry clarity and impact. Every story you tell, every message you send, should reflect your values, your standards, and your awareness. When you do this, people start listening differently. They lean in, not because they are forced to, but because your words resonate. They remember your statements because they are few but meaningful, not because they are frequent and forgotten. Silence also forces reflection. When you stop reacting to every message, every call, every slight, and every drama, you create space for others to process their behavior, their feelings, and their actions. Men, in particular, are driven by reflection more than constant dialogue. When you withhold unnecessary explanations, they are left to sit with their thoughts, confronting the impact of their actions or the weight of their absence. This is where longing is born. This is where appreciation begins. This is where people start to realize what they have taken for granted. Your words, used sparingly, become a mirror for them to examine themselves. This principle also applies to emotions. When you speak less about your feelings for validation, you demonstrate control and self-awareness. Emotional oversharing often signals neediness or lack of boundaries. But when you convey your emotions selectively, when you share your heart only with those who value it, your feelings gain intensity and authenticity. Your words are no longer noise, they are signals, direct and impossible to ignore. People cannot dismiss what is rare. They cannot ignore what is precise. They cannot forget what is intentionally expressed. Moreover, speaking less teaches patience and discipline. It requires awareness of your triggers, your impulses, and your need for attention. It requires that you pause before responding, reflect before speaking, and consider whether your words advance your presence or diminish it. This level of control is not common. It is not easy, but it is powerful. It elevates your presence because you are no longer reactive. You are not scattering your energy to please others. Instead, you are focused on your growth, your purpose, and the quality of your interactions. Selective speech also allows your actions to speak louder than your words. Men notice what is consistent and tangible more than what is spoken. When your life, your energy, and your boundaries communicate your values clearly, your words become confirmation rather than explanation. Your silence enhances your presence. Your actions carry meaning. Your energy becomes unmistakable. People begin to reflect on your absence and your engagement in ways they cannot do with someone who speaks endlessly without impact. Learning to speak less but mean more also cultivates inner strength. It forces you to process your thoughts internally, to gain clarity about what is worth sharing, and to detach from the need for external validation. Your words become a tool of influence, not a crutch for attention. Your silence becomes a form of authority, a reflection of self-respect, and a magnet for recognition. People naturally start valuing your presence more because they realize it is not easily accessible. They begin to notice the contrast between noise and intention, between someone who over-explains and someone whose every word matters. Ultimately, speaking less and meaning more is about self-mastery. It is about aligning your voice with your energy, your actions, and your purpose. It is about creating space for reflection, longing, and appreciation. It is about turning your presence into a force that is felt even in absence. By choosing your words carefully, by cultivating silence intentionally, and by expressing only what truly matters, you become unforgettable. You become a woman whose presence lingers in minds and hearts long after you leave. And that is the power of speaking less and letting your silence speak volumes. Build a life so full that no one becomes your only source of happiness. Too many women tie their joy, their validation, and their sense of worth to another person, believing that attention, affection, or approval is what makes life meaningful. This is a trap. When your happiness depends on someone else, you surrender your power, your freedom, and your peace. You hand over control of your emotions to someone who may not value them as deeply as you do. The first step to making someone miss you is realizing that your life must be complete on its own, abundant in purpose, passion, and fulfillment, before anyone else can enter it. A full life is built on priorities that honor your growth, your time, and your energy. It is about pursuing goals that excite you, mastering skills that empower you, and cultivating habits that elevate your mind, body, and spirit. It is about creating routines that feed your happiness independently of external validation. When you are fully engaged in your own life, you are not waiting for someone to show up, notice you, or validate your worth. You are already fulfilled, already radiant, and already intentional. This is magnetic. People are drawn not to neediness, but to abundance, not to desperation, but to completeness, not to dependence, but to independence. Many women fail to understand that building a full life is not selfish. It is necessary. If you are empty internally, you will constantly seek to fill yourself with someone else's attention, time, and love. You will chase, plead, and compromise, hoping that another person's presence will make you feel alive. But when you build a life of richness, your presence is no longer dependent on anyone. Your joy, your purpose, and your energy become self-sustaining. When someone leaves or distances themselves, you do not crumble, you do not panic, you do not beg, you continue to live fully, and that independence is what creates longing. That is what makes your absence felt. A full life also means cultivating your passions. Whether it is career, creativity, fitness, travel, learning, or spirituality. Investing in what excites and challenges you builds depth. It shows that you have standards, that your time is valuable, and that your energy is rare. People notice a woman who is driven, who has direction, who fills her life with meaning. They do not notice someone who waits idly for attention or validation. By developing yourself, your skills, and your experiences, you make your life worth missing. Your presence is no longer casual, it is a contribution to the space you occupy, a force that leaves an imprint, and an energy that cannot be replaced. Building a full life also strengthens boundaries. When you are fulfilled internally, you no longer tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or disregard. You stop bending your schedule, energy, and emotions to accommodate people who are inconsistent or unworthy. Your time becomes sacred, your attention becomes selective, and your presence becomes intentional. You do not chase, you do not plead, you do not compromise your values for the sake of temporary connection. Instead, you continue building, growing, and elevating yourself, which naturally creates respect, reflection, and longing in those who are absent. A full life cultivates inner peace and self-confidence. When you rely on your own joy and fulfillment, you become immune to emotional turbulence caused by others. Their actions no longer dictate your happiness. Their absence no longer triggers panic. Their words no longer control your energy. This level of independence is magnetic because it contrasts sharply with the common patterns of neediness, insecurity, and attachment. People are drawn to strength. They are drawn to abundance. They are drawn to someone who has cultivated a life so rich that their presence is a choice, not a necessity. Connection becomes a bonus, not a requirement. When your life is full, relationships are no longer a means to fill gaps, but an exchange of energy between equals. You engage deeply with those who align with your values, contribute to your growth, and respect your presence. You invest selectively, with intention, and without desperation. And when someone leaves or distances themselves, their absence is felt not because you are weak, but because they are missing a woman whose life is complete, rare, and vibrant. Building a full life also cultivates joy in solitude. When you are comfortable alone, you stop clinging to people or circumstances that do not serve you. You stop seeking external validation as a measure of self-worth. You create an internal ecosystem of happiness, satisfaction, and fulfillment. Others begin to notice your self-reliance. They begin to see that your time, your attention, and your energy are precious. And in that awareness, they begin to miss the presence they cannot take for granted. Ultimately, a full life is not about excluding others. It is about including yourself first. It is about building a foundation so strong, so abundant, and so radiant that anyone who comes into your world feels the weight of your presence. It is about becoming magnetic without effort, unforgettable without trying, and independent without arrogance. When you invest in yourself, your passions, your growth, and your purpose, you naturally create a life worth missing. And that is the true power of being a woman whose absence leaves a mark. This is why building a full life is the key to creating presence, power, and longing. Control your emotions so your reactions never control you. This is one of the most overlooked forms of power, yet it is the foundation of presence, dignity, and influence. Many women allow their emotions to dictate their actions, letting frustration, anger, jealousy, or insecurity spill out in ways that weaken their energy instead of strengthening it. When your feelings drive your behavior, you are reactive, scattered, and predictable. People notice this. They sense instability, and they may take your presence for granted. Emotional mastery, on the other hand, is magnetic. It is rare. It is unforgettable. When you control your emotions, you become steady, centered, and unshakable. And in that steadiness, people begin to miss the energy you bring when you are present. Emotional control does not mean suppression. It does not mean hiding your feelings or pretending you are unaffected. It means understanding your emotions, processing them internally, and responding deliberately rather than impulsively. Most women react instantly to words, actions, or situations because they are untrained in managing the energy that rises within them. They text, call, confront, or over-explain out of a need to resolve discomfort immediately. But in doing so, they scatter their power and make their presence ordinary. True control comes from the pause, the ability to feel deeply, reflect silently, and choose an action that aligns with your dignity and long-term presence. This practice begins with awareness. You must notice how your body, mind, and heart respond in every situation. Anger, disappointment, sadness, or excitement are signals, not instructions. They reveal where your boundaries are being tested and where your energy may be misaligned. By observing without immediately acting, you reclaim your power. You turn a moment of potential chaos into an opportunity for clarity. You no longer allow someone else's behavior to hijack your emotional state. You become the center of your world, not a passenger in someone else's drama. Controlling your emotions also protects your energy. When you react impulsively, you hand over your power to external circumstances. Every argument, every slight, every perceived disrespect becomes a drain. But when you pause, breathe, and respond with intention, you conserve your energy for what truly matters. You reserve your attention for people who deserve it, for interactions that align with your purpose, and for moments that add value to your life. Emotional mastery ensures that your presence is never diminished by unnecessary turmoil, and that your energy remains magnetic and rare. This level of control also fosters respect. People are drawn to those who remain composed, even in challenging situations. Emotional volatility signals unpredictability, neediness, or insecurity. Calmness signals strength, self-assurance, and discipline. Men, in particular, notice a woman whose energy is steady because it contrasts with the instability they may be used to. They begin to recognize that your presence is not something to take lightly. They notice the quiet confidence in how you manage yourself, and in that recognition, they begin to feel the absence when you are not there. Emotional control allows for strategic absence. You do not respond immediately to every message or call because you are unsettled. You do not chase to resolve discomfort because you fear loss. You let space exist naturally, and in that space, people reflect on their actions, their words, and their impact on you. They begin to understand that your energy cannot be accessed at will, that your attention is intentional, and that your presence carries value. Emotional discipline turns absence into a silent teacher, a subtle force that makes others realize the weight of what they have taken for granted. Controlling your emotions also strengthens boundaries. You cannot enforce standards if your reactions undermine them. If someone crosses a line and you respond with panic, anger, or pleading, you dilute your authority. But when you respond calmly, firmly, and deliberately, you reinforce your boundaries without drama. You demonstrate that your energy is not negotiable and that respect is required before engagement. This is not just a form of self-preservation, it is a method of influence. People notice when they cannot provoke a reaction, and in that noticing, they begin to value the presence they once took lightly. Mastering your emotions requires practice and consistency. It is cultivated through self-reflection, meditation, journaling, or other methods that allow you to process energy internally before expressing it externally. It demands patience and honesty with yourself. You must recognize triggers, confront insecurities, and resist the temptation to release power through impulsive responses. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Over time, you internalize calmness, you embody composure, you radiate a presence that is rare and magnetic, and people begin to miss it when it is absent because it cannot be manufactured or replaced. Ultimately, controlling your emotions is a declaration of self-mastery. It shifts the dynamic in every interaction. It elevates your energy from reactive to deliberate. It transforms your presence into something unforgettable. By mastering your inner world, you ensure that your outer world reflects strength, dignity, and intentionality. People begin to respect, reflect, and long for the stability you offer simply by being you. Emotional mastery is not about pleasing others. It is about preserving your energy, commanding respect, and creating magnetic presence. It is the key to becoming unforgettable. Leave with dignity when respect is broken, and never chase closure. This is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength, yet it is essential for presence, self-respect, and long-term impact. Many women stay in situations where respect is absent because they fear being alone, because they hope things will change, or because they crave explanations they may never receive. They chase closure, seeking validation from someone who has already shown they cannot honor it. But true power lies in walking away without desperation, leaving quietly, and holding your dignity intact. When you do this, your absence becomes a statement far louder than any argument, confrontation, or pleading ever could. Dignity is the invisible armor that protects your energy. When someone disrespects you, it is not your responsibility to correct their behavior or explain your worth. Trying to force someone to understand your value through explanation, confrontation, or repeated justification is a form of energy leakage. It diminishes your presence and signals neediness, which is the opposite of magnetism. By leaving with dignity, you demonstrate that your value is not up for debate and that your standards are non-negotiable. This is a quiet power. It is subtle yet unforgettable because it communicates strength without aggression and self-respect without attachment. Many women make the mistake of seeking closure. They believe that if they can get someone to explain their actions, apologize, or recognize the hurt they caused, then they can finally feel complete. But closure is rarely delivered by the person who caused the pain. Real closure comes from within, from understanding your worth, honoring your boundaries, and refusing to settle for less than you deserve. By leaving without chasing answers, you reclaim your power. You show that your peace is not dependent on anyone else, and in that independence lies magnetic energy. People notice when you step away without desperation because it contrasts sharply with those who cling, chase, or beg. Leaving with dignity is not passive. It is deliberate. It is a conscious decision to protect your energy and preserve your presence. It requires awareness of the signs of disrespect and the courage to act on them, even if it is uncomfortable. It requires the ability to detach emotionally from outcomes and to prioritize your long-term well-being over temporary connection or validation. This is not a sign of weakness. It is the highest form of strength because it demands self-control, patience, and clarity. By leaving calmly and without drama, you create space for reflection, respect, and sometimes even longing in those who fail to honor your value. When respect is broken, staying or arguing often only reinforces the other person's behavior. It shows that boundaries can be negotiated, that patience has limits, and that your energy is available regardless of how they treat it. But walking away communicates a completely different message. Your presence is a privilege, not a right. It teaches that your attention, time, and energy are sacred and will not be wasted on disrespect. It shifts the power dynamic because you no longer give control to someone who has already shown disregard for your worth. Instead, you reclaim it fully, quietly, and powerfully. This principle also protects your emotional health. When you chase closure or linger where respect is absent, you subject yourself to ongoing disappointment, frustration, and pain. You risk lowering your standards, tolerating mistreatment, and allowing your energy to be depleted. But when you choose to leave with dignity, you break the cycle. You prevent future damage, reinforce your boundaries, and create the internal conditions necessary for peace and growth. You demonstrate that self-respect is not conditional and that you will not compromise your integrity for temporary comfort or explanation. Leaving with dignity is also a strategic act in relationships. People notice absence far more than they notice presence, especially when your presence is taken for granted. When you step away calmly, without drama, without pleading, without chasing, you create space for reflection. The person who disrespected you begins to process the loss of your energy, attention, and presence. They start to realize what they have missed and what they cannot replace. This is far more effective than confrontation because it bypasses ego defenses and triggers true awareness of the value you held. Finally, leaving with dignity fosters independence and self-reliance. You learn to trust your judgment, honor your boundaries, and rely on your own emotional resources. You do not depend on someone else to validate your worth, apologize for their mistakes, or provide comfort after disrespect. You create a life in which your happiness, peace, and fulfillment are your own responsibility. This autonomy is rare and magnetic. It draws respect, admiration, and even longing because it demonstrates a level of mastery and presence that most people cannot ignore. Understanding this principle transforms how you handle broken respect and unmet expectations. You stop clinging. You stop chasing. You stop begging for recognition or apology. Instead, you act with clarity, self-respect, and calm confidence. You preserve your energy, protect your dignity, and maintain your presence. In doing so, you become a woman whose absence speaks volumes, whose power is undeniable, and whose standards are unshakable. Walking away with dignity is not about revenge or proving a point. It is about choosing yourself first, protecting your energy, and honoring your worth. It is a quiet, unshakable strength that leaves a lasting impact. Nurture your body, mind, and spirit so your energy feels rare. True presence is not something you can fabricate with words or actions alone. It radiates from the alignment of your entire being. When your body is healthy, your mind is disciplined, and your spirit is cultivated, you emit a frequency that is unmistakable and unforgettable. People are drawn not to chaos or neediness, but to balance, vitality, and depth. A woman who invests in herself in all three dimensions creates an energy that is magnetic because it signals that she is complete, grounded, and irreplaceable. Caring for your body is the first step in cultivating rare energy. Your physical presence communicates as much as your words and actions. When you respect your health, nourish yourself with intention, and maintain your energy, you signal to others that you value yourself. This is not vanity, it is discipline. Physical fitness, proper rest, and mindful nutrition are tools to fortify your energy so that you are not easily drained by the demands or chaos of others. Your vitality becomes a reflection of self-respect. It shows that you are capable of sustaining yourself, that you take your life seriously, and that your presence is not easily replaceable. But physical care alone is not enough. your mind must also be nurtured. Mental discipline, clarity, and growth are essential to cultivating energy that others cannot ignore. A scattered, reactive, or constantly distracted mind produces energy that is ordinary, predictable, and forgettable. On the other hand, a mind that is cultivated through learning, reflection, and intention radiates power. It signals wisdom, focus, and self-mastery. When you think deeply, process experiences thoughtfully, and engage with the world intentionally, you create a mental presence that commands respect and attention. People are drawn to a woman who carries knowledge, perspective, and insight because her mind is a source of rare energy they cannot create themselves. Equally important is the nurturing of your spirit. This is the invisible dimension that most people overlook, yet it is what makes energy unforgettable. Spirit is cultivated through self-awareness, meditation, reflection, and connection to purpose. It is the part of you that remains unshaken in chaos, calm in turbulence, and radiant even in solitude. A woman who nurtures her spirit is grounded in her values, anchored in her purpose, and aligned with her inner truth. She does not bend to external drama, chase validation, or seek attention to feel worthy. Her energy comes from within, and it cannot be replicated or replaced. People notice this, often unconsciously, and her absence is felt precisely because her energy is so rare. When body, mind, and spirit are aligned, your presence transforms. You no longer operate out of neediness, insecurity, or emotional chaos. You do not over-explain, over-commit, or overextend yourself to seek validation. Your energy becomes deliberate, calm, and magnetic. Others sense it immediately. Men in particular notice women whose energy is composed of depth, discipline, and vitality because it contrasts sharply with what is common. They are drawn to it, reflect on it, and often begin to miss it when it is absent because it cannot be manufactured or substituted. Cultivating rare energy also requires consistency. It is not enough to take care of yourself sporadically or only when it is convenient. Discipline in caring for your body, mind, and spirit communicates that you respect your own energy enough to protect it at all times. Consistency builds habits, fortifies presence, and signals stability. People notice when someone maintains energy that is steady, radiant, and intentional because it contrasts sharply with those who fluctuate between highs and lows, availability and chaos, presence and distraction. This consistent energy becomes unforgettable, and in its absence, it leaves a void that is immediately recognizable. Another dimension of rare energy is emotional resilience. Nurturing yourself in all three areas equips you to handle life's challenges without losing composure. When setbacks, disrespect, or disappointment arise, you do not crumble or overreact. You respond with calm, reflection, and strength. This level of emotional mastery amplifies your presence because it communicates control, wisdom, and self-respect. It teaches others that your energy is not disposable, that your attention is precious, and that your presence is earned rather than given freely. Finally, nurturing body, mind, and spirit cultivates self-reliance and independence. You become a woman whose fulfillment does not depend on external validation, attention, or presence. Your joy comes from the alignment of your inner world, your growth, and your energy. When you radiate this type of rare energy, people take notice, they reflect, and they begin to value what cannot be replaced. Absence in your case becomes profound, because what you offer through your holistic presence is not something ordinary, it is rare, magnetic, and unforgettable. Ultimately, nurturing yourself fully is a declaration of your worth. It transforms how others perceive, respect, and respond to you. It ensures that your energy is not ordinary, that your presence is meaningful, and that your absence leaves a lasting impression. Rare energy is cultivated through intentional care, consistent discipline, and alignment of body, mind, and spirit, and it is the secret to being unforgettable. Love deeply, but never abandon yourself to prove loyalty. This is a lesson most women overlook because they confuse intensity with surrender, affection with self-neglect, and loyalty with self-sacrifice. True love is not about bending your identity, suppressing your needs, or compromising your standards to prove devotion. It is about giving fully from a place of alignment, presence, and self-respect. When you love deeply while remaining anchored in yourself, your energy becomes magnetic, your presence unforgettable, and your absence profoundly felt. People notice depth, not desperation, and they recognize commitment, when it is paired with unwavering self-respect. Many women fall into the trap of abandoning themselves in the name of loyalty. They compromise their routines, neglect their growth, or tolerate behavior that disrespects them because they want to prove that their love is unshakable. But when you abandon yourself, you teach the wrong lesson. You teach that your energy is disposable, your presence is negotiable, and your boundaries are flexible. Instead of creating longing, you create predictability and dependence, and predictability is easily replaced. True power comes from demonstrating that love does not demand self-erasure, that commitment is strongest when it coexists with integrity, and that loyalty begins with honoring your own worth. Loving deeply requires courage. It requires vulnerability without attachment, generosity without expectation, and empathy without losing yourself. When you offer your heart fully, you do so intentionally, knowing that your energy is valuable and your presence is not endless. You do not chase validation. You do not demand recognition. You give because it aligns with your principles and because it comes from a place of abundance, not scarcity. Deep love is about presence, attention, and connection that is conscious and deliberate. It is about holding space for someone else without sacrificing your own inner world. Boundaries are central to loving deeply without losing yourself. They are the framework that ensures your loyalty does not become self-abandonment. When you set limits on how you are treated, how your time is spent, and what energy you give, you communicate clearly that love is not permission to diminish your value. Boundaries are not barriers to connection, they are the scaffolding for sustainable intimacy. A woman who loves with clear boundaries demonstrates that she can give profoundly, yet she will never compromise her dignity or her purpose. This balance creates respect, admiration, and ultimately longing in those who recognize it. Loving deeply also requires emotional intelligence. You must understand your feelings, process them internally, and express them thoughtfully. Reacting impulsively, begging for attention, or suppressing frustration creates chaos rather than connection. Emotional mastery ensures that your love is stable, consistent, and powerful. Men notice women who manage themselves, who do not need constant reassurance, and who give affection without demanding energy in return. Your calm, deliberate energy becomes rare because it is not driven by insecurity or attachment, it is driven by authenticity and presence. Another crucial element is self-investment. Love is amplified when your life is abundant, your energy is disciplined, and your growth is ongoing. A woman who continues to cultivate her passions, nurture her body, sharpen her mind, and refine her spirit while loving someone demonstrates that she is complete independently. This completeness is magnetic. It ensures that your love is never a plea for validation but a reflection of abundance. People feel it. They notice it. They begin to miss it when it is not present because it is not ordinary energy, it is rare, deliberate, and grounded. Loving deeply while maintaining self-respect also transforms attachment into admiration. When you do not cling, when you do not overextend to prove loyalty, and when you do not compromise your standards to secure connection, people begin to see the value of your presence. They reflect on your energy, recognize the space you hold, and feel the impact of your absence. Loyalty becomes a quality that is admired rather than demanded. Depth becomes magnetic rather than disposable. Absence teaches lessons that presence cannot always communicate, and a woman who loves from alignment achieves this naturally. Finally, loving without abandoning yourself is a lifelong practice. It requires awareness, courage, and discipline. It demands that you stay aligned with your values, honor your boundaries, and prioritize your growth even while giving generously to others. It requires patience and self-reflection, understanding that love does not mean surrendering power, and loyalty does not mean losing yourself. When you master this balance, your energy becomes unforgettable. Your presence becomes a force that inspires respect and reflection. Your absence creates longing because it is rare, powerful, and impossible to replace. Loving deeply is not measured by sacrifice. It is measured by alignment. It is measured by the ability to give fully while remaining whole. It is measured by the courage to remain yourself even while connecting profoundly with another. This is the kind of love that leaves a lasting impression, commands respect, and ensures that your energy is valued, remembered, and missed. As we come to the end of this message, remember this: your presence is your power, your energy is your currency, and your life is your masterpiece. When you value your time, speak with intention, Build a life full of purpose. Master your emotions. Live with dignity. Nurture yourself wholly. And love deeply without losing yourself. You become unforgettable. You do not chase attention. You do not seek validation. You radiate a presence that lingers, creates reflection, and inspires longing. The world notices the woman who stands in her power quietly, who walks her path with discipline, and who honors her own worth above all else. You have the tools to transform your relationships, your energy, and the way people perceive your value. Every choice you make, from how you invest your time to how you protect your peace, shapes the life you are building. And when you align with these principles, absence is no longer emptiness, it becomes a force that teaches respect, creates longing, and cements your worth in ways words cannot. Go forward with confidence, patience, and clarity. Stand firmly in your energy, honor yourself in every interaction, and cultivate the rare presence that people cannot ignore. The power to make your absence felt is not in drama, persuasion, or chasing, it is in mastery, alignment, and self-respect. Good luck on your journey to becoming unforgettable. Thank you for giving your attention to this message. May you walk in your power, radiate your value, and leave a lasting impression on everyone who crosses your path.